an unbelievable operation that even movies cannot be as dramatic as this one, from one of the most dangerous places on the face of this earth. People from outside the village would start walking towards us and asking me, who are you, where are you from? Some of them came with shotguns and guns in my face because they thought I'm a Mossad agent, or they thought I'm just here, some kind of an archaeologist that came to steal the hidden treasures of King Solomon that were hidden under the land. For some reason, refugee camp starts charging on them. Imagine when you watch Black Hawk Down from above, when all the Somalians were going, or in a zombie movie and all the zombies are charging right now. And then they got into the helicopter, and we have videos of that. All the money. Extreme elite warrior, people who are not afraid to die, people who are gladiator and philosophers at the same time, people who are literally, you would not want to start a gunfight. It's like all them radical Muslim zombies, explosive with RPGs, going through the alleyways, and these soldiers are now driving in through and going to rescue them. They say here that they went back in the same way. Rescuing hostages from the third floor, that's a whole different ballgame. The higher the floors are, the more complicated it is, for several reasons. First of all, and that led the IDF to even lead to a special permission for the SU, for these Chinook helicopters, to go and land inside of Gaza. We're talking about Israeli helicopters landing under fire inside. Now, I've trained with the Yamam, I've seen the Yamam, I've worked with the Yamam in my past. If I can tell you right now of one of the deadliest... Welcome to today's episode, where we'll be talking about the heroic hostage rescue operation that the IDF, Yamam, the Shabak, the police have just conducted in Gaza. Probably one of the most impressive, heroic, complicated military operations in modern warfare. I would dare to say, since the Operation Entebbe until today, that's probably one of the most impressive hostage rescue operations that Israel have conducted. My name is Mansour, former special operation officer in the IDF, born and raised in an Arab family in Israel, spent a lifetime of studying the history and religion of the Middle East, and I will try today to bring you from my knowledge and unpack this entire operation and talk about it through all the aspects, military-wise, culture-wise, political-wise, and just hopefully help educate some people back home who are wondering about this conflict, that would like to hear from a different perspective, because I think my perspective is unique, because I grew up in Israel to an Arab family in an Arab village. Later on, I spent the rest of my life living in a Jewish town, which gave me a pretty cool insight, I would say, unique insight, understanding Israel from the Arab side, from the Jewish side, from the Christian side, from the secular side, from the religious side. Further, I walked the entire nation of Israel, and I walked the entire nation of Jordan. I think I bring a pretty vast knowledge to the table, and I'm gonna try today to unpack this entire operation and tell it also through the eyes of someone who used to be specializing in the whole area of anti-terrorism and hostage rescue when I was serving in the special forces in the IDF. So let's jump right in, and bear in mind, I am reading what the news have revealed from numerous news sources: Israeli news, Al Jazeera, American, European news. Some of the things that I'll be saying right now might change in the days to come, but we'll work with what we have now, and we'll talk and unpack it, and I'm just gonna take it step by step and read it. The soldiers were dressed as displaced citizens and claimed that they were looking for a house to rent, and that would be the exact same house where they were holding actually Noah al-Gamani. Eyewitnesses to the Arnon operation, they called it Arnon operation because the Yamam officer who got killed in the operation as he was leading his soldiers and was the first one to break into the house, his name was Arnon. So they changed the name into Arnon operation. A special forces of Mistalvim, that's the name that they give in Israel to this special units that basically dress like the local community so they can infiltrate behind enemy lines, blend in, and then rescue and take down high-ranking targets. Entered Nusriyat with a car full of the typical equipment that you will expect people who are displaced from their homes in Gaza to have. And when was asked by the locals, he said that they were running away from the bombing that was in Rafah and looking for a new place to call home, looking for a house to rent in that house. Now let's unpack this for a second. Many of you might not fully understand how complicated it is to enter Gaza, to enter basically any place in the Middle East, especially in the West Bank and Gaza, in broad daylight. As someone who have been there in daylight and night, I can tell you it's extremely difficult. The people there are not welcoming to strangers. The people there are extremely suspicious of any stranger. I remember when I was there, I was asked right, left, and center about the source of my accent, where am I coming from, they can immediately spot you that you're not from that community. That's what usually happens. I will tell you even more. Some of the local dogs in these areas have been so used to the smell of the people around them that when they see a stranger coming in, the dog starts barking. Everybody starts becoming very suspicious of who you are, and they will address you straight on in your face and start asking you, who are you, where are you from? That's like one of the typical questions that when you go to Middle East, Arab countries, they start asking you, who are you? مين انت من وين جاي لوين رايح مين أبوك مين أمك, and they start questioning you. And basically I would tell you right now as a fact, almost every second citizens feel like he is some kind of a interrogation officer and will start questioning your motives. So having Israel send their special unit in broad daylight, dressed as the locals, into the den of Gaza, into the heart of Gaza to rescue these hostages, is something you don't do every day. It's something that is extremely complicated, extremely dangerous. So many things can go wrong, and then all hell goes loose, which kind of what happened towards the end of the operation. We're going to be talking about that as well. So let's go point by point. I'm going to start by reading you what they shared in Ynet about the whole chain of events. 2 days before the operation, Israel decided to give a go to the operation that they used to call back then Summer Seeds, and they changed the name later on when the Yamam officer got shot and then died in the operation, or later on in Israel. Saturday, 11 in the morning, the Operation P'al was given by the Ramatkal and the Shabak. P'al means let's go, like action. Start, like in the cinema, action, start the operation, go, go, go. The Imam and the Shabak went simultaneously to 2 separate buildings where they believed the hostages to be held. In one building, they said there was 3 male hostages. Another building was 1 female hostage. We're not going to go into the reason right now why did they separate the female and put her alone. Would leave that to your own interpretation, but there's quite a few theories going around about what was the reason for that, and none of them sounds very appealing. Noah Gamani hears knocking on her door, and people are saying, it's the IDF, Tzahal, Banu Khalatotchem. IDF is here, we came to rescue you. Heavy gunfire started going around in the second house where the 3 male hostages were held. The Yamam soldier, officer Arnon Zamura, that was leading his unit, was stepping in the first. You know, when you come to these operations, usually you'll have the guy that break in the first. And he is taking the most dangerous role in that operation because he is jumping into the room, into the fire, into the possible trap, into the line of sight of the terrorists that are waiting for him in case they were revealed before they entered, and his chance of getting shot is very, very high. He needs to be extremely fast and efficient, but also he needs to rely on his teammates who are going to come right after him to take down the other targets who were hiding maybe in the other sides of the room. In general, it's, I would say, when I used to do it in the army, it was one of the scariest things to do. To be the first one breaking in, it takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage. And as you see, sometimes we end up losing our best people. So he got shot and later on died. Rescue. As they were escaping Gaza, there was a car that had the 3 hostages, one of the trucks, and that truck was getting shot at right, left, and center with heavy fire. And as per the reports, you know, maybe things will start clearing out when the fog of war is gone. But right now we know that that vehicle got stuck in the middle of Gaza and was receiving heavy fire, and we're having hundreds of insurgents of Hezbollah, hundreds of Hamas, and even local Gazans, these innocent local Gazans, running at them with guns, RPGs, grenades, and just shooting at them in that moment. And this is actually a statement from one of the people that was in that war room. He came in and said, when we were watching these footage, it gave me the feel, the vibe of Mogadishu, of Black Hawk Down. When the helicopter, when the Black Hawk fell down and we had to really go and send the entire army to go and rescue them, that was the feel. And they gave the contingency plan, which is the rescue, and the IDF operated stage 2, which they brought in tanks, airplanes, helicopters, even the Navy was involved in that, and they went in full on to go and rescue their hostages, their citizens, and rescue the people, the soldiers, the brave soldiers who are right now inside of Gaza, surrounded by these hundreds of insurgents who are trying to go and kill them because they came to rescue them. Through that entire operation, under heavy fire and heroic operation, they managed to rescue them. Just imagine how would that been. I mean, put in your head right now, Black Hawk Down, Call of Duty, I don't know what. Just try to imagine what was going on in that moment. Having these hostages finally in your hand, you're car breaks down because it was shot out or a mechanical problem, we're not so sure yet, and then you end up having to fight for your life and call for backup, call for an evac, and that led the IDF to even lead to a special permission for the SU, for these Chinook helicopters, to go and land inside of Gaza. We're talking about Israeli helicopters landing under fire inside of Gaza, so these cars and vehicles can go and they can evacuate these soldiers and these hostages safely and bring them back home. Tens of terrorists. Later on, it was said actually hundreds of terrorists with RPGs and machine guns shooting towards the soldiers in the alleys, on the rooftops as they were evacuating. The IDF operates heavy fire, and as per the Palestinians, 90 people died. Later on, they said 100 and 200, and the numbers, keep going. It's very hard to trust the numbers that were given to us by the Gazans, but I'm sure that there were a lot of people dead. Most of them were probably terrorists, but unfortunately even civilians. And let's stop about this for a second and talk about that point. That's what happened when you go into a country, kill their people, kidnap their citizens, and hide them inside your homes in heavily civilian populated areas. They hid them in refugee camps. Why would you hide hostages in a refugee camp? What do you expect? And then when the IDF comes to rescue them, you start fighting them, shooting at them from these houses, from these streets, from these schools and whatever. So what do you think IDF is going to do? Are they going to come and say, you know what, guys, game over, let them kill us, we'll try it next time? Absolutely not. Every normal country will fight until the end to rescue its own people. That's what a country should do. That's a responsibility that your country have towards your citizens, your soldiers. When you're going into an enemy land to rescue your own people and bring them back home, and then this enemy land try to kill your own people, obviously you're going to fight back, and obviously and sadly there will be civilian casualties, which is a story right now here. So let's continue reading and see what happened. As per reports, the Israeli Special Forces, this is reports that were given by actually Gazans later on. The Israeli forces had men and women that were dressed as if they are Gazan families. Now, let's talk about this for a second. Women, Israel have used and use sometimes women in very, very delicate and dangerous operations. From my experience in such operations, it's often not really women. It's more guys who have a little bit feminine kind of facial figures or skin composure. And then they use hours of makeup artists and costumes to make them look like women. They put explosives in their bras. They have a MP5 dangling between their legs. It's easier to do it in radical Muslim countries. And the reason for that, because radical Muslim countries don't treat women fairly. They're very oppressive toward women, and a lot of the women there are completely covered. So it's kind of easier to infiltrate dressed like a woman while you're actually a deadly Yamam SWAT officer or Special Forces, Delta, SAS, and etc., dressed as a woman. But anyway, they said that there were women among them, which makes sense because you want it to be credible. So you're going to have men and women, probably not children, unless you have a midget in your team. No offense to all midgets out there. I love you guys. Game of Thrones, Tyron, one of the best guys. And when the local people of Nusrayat asked the warriors where they come and what's their purpose of visit in this refugee camp, they answered that they were escaping from Rafah and because of the heavy airstrikes, and they decided to rent a house in the area of the market. Why would you hide hostages? Again, why would you hide hostages in a heavily populated refugee camp in the market, the most busiest place in the city, where people go for food, for buying toys for the children, I don't know what? Why would you hide the hostages there? Unless you're trying to use your own people as human shields. Eyewitnesses further said that in this point, the warriors were pointing at the building where Noah was being held and saying that's where we're going to go and try to rent a house. And the Gazans said that the special unit have reached Nusayrat with a vehicle full of equipment that is usually what you expect to have on people who are displaced from their homes, like mattresses and local clothes that people in Gaza have, in order not to be suspicious. The Yamam and the Shabak then simultaneously started the operation by raiding both houses where the hostages were being held, where Noah was being held on the first floor in one building, and Andre, Shlomi, and Almog were in the third floor in another building. Rescuing hostages from a third floor, that's a whole different ballgame. The higher the floors are, the more complicated it is, for several reasons. First of all, when it's first floor, it's easier for you to break in, element of surprise, ding dong, FedEx, I don't know what. Ding dong, falafel shawarma. They open the door, go, go, go. You go in, you take down the insurgents, and you rescue the hostages. Third floor, you need to enter the building. You need to climb the staircase, being undetected, which is already, you're not only in Gaza, now you're in someone's building. Just imagine how difficult that is in a culture that suspects anyone. I'm talking any stranger is considered a Mossad agent, is considered a special forces. When I was traveling in the Middle East, when I was traveling in Jordan, every Bedouin camp or town or village that I came, people from outside the village would start walking towards us and asking me, who are you, where are you from? Some of them came with shotguns and guns in my face because they thought I'm a Mossad agent, or they thought I'm just here, some kind of an archaeologist that came to steal the hidden treasures of King Solomon that were hidden under their land. For some reason, many Bedouins in Jordan believe that under their land there is like a cave full of the treasures of King Solomon, and anyone that have a little bit GPS and some hiking gears is either a Mossad agent or someone, archaeologist, who's coming Indiana Jones style, coming to steal the treasures, and they become very hostile towards you, which is very annoying. So here we have them right now in that building, going floor by floor, or maybe even had to start the operation from the first floor, meaning that they need to run all the way to the third floor using ladders, I don't know what. They're not coming with helicopters from the rooftop probably at this point, because that's a little bit more complicated to do it in an enemy territory. You can maybe do that in your country easier. I'm not saying you can't, but I mean, imagine coming with a helicopter right now in Gaza into that building. That helicopter will be shot down long ago before it reached that building. So now they need to run all the way up. And what complicates hostage rescue operations is usually the terrorists are holding the hostages in a place where they can defend them or execute them. Meaning, if they see that they cannot fight you off and you're about to take them, we usually would rather to kill them, either strap them with bombs around them or with someone standing behind and ready to shoot them in the back of the head before you break in the room, which leaves the element of surprise to be so important. That's one of the reasons they said, because in the beginning they were talking about it, and again, what I'm saying here is I'm reading based on news reports from numerous sources. They wanted to rescue Noah first, and then maybe go and rescue the other three, because Noah's operation was a little bit less complicated. I mean, every one of these operations is extremely complicated, but in that atmosphere of extremely Mission Impossible-like complicated, Noah's operation was less Mission Impossible than the other one. But they realized that if they will do that to Noah, then the next time they will go for the other three guys, they'll probably be moved to another place, or maybe even extremer measures of protection will be placed around them to kill the hostages or booby trap the area for their mom or the Shabak that is coming. So they decided to do it in the same time. Now we're talking about two different forces going in daylight. This is a key point. You barely do these things in daylight. In one of the most dangerous, highly populated areas right now in the world, walking in the streets, fully exposed to be killed or kidnapped, and then breaking into the houses at the same time. As per the reports, the force split to two, like I said, and they went to the medical center Al-Auda and the house that was about 200 meters from the hospital. Eyewitnesses said that the rescue of Al-Gamani was relatively easy compared to the ones of Andre, Almog, and Shlomi. Almog, Andre, and Shlomi. I said their names right. And the entire operation was done under heavy fire. From the ground, from the sea, from the air. From the ground, from the sea, from the air. And when the special forces came with the trucks, they rescued the hostages, while other trucks were going as civilian trucks covering the forces. So what they're saying is they went by foot, they entered, and as they were fighting, that was the go for the trucks to go in. Some of the trucks were to take the people in them and bring them back, probably trucks that will be covered with sandbags inside and etc. to make it easier, to make it safer for the hostages to bring them back home. Because when an operation like that goes, when you're a Yamam SWAT officer or soldier, you know that if I'm going to rescue these hostages, I'm going to bring them back home. And if need be, I will be the bodyguard. I will be the human shield for them. And that's a big difference that you have right now between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. You look at it in every country. In the US, the Delta Force and Navy SEALs. In Britain, the SAS. In other countries, Germany, etc. The special forces will go and try to be the human shield for the hostages. The Gazans do the exact opposite. They use the hostages as human shields. They use their own children as human shields and their own society as human shields. So we know that the trucks went, some trucks were to take the hostages, other trucks were backup and cover trucks. Let's unpack this for a second. When you go into an operation like this, you're not going 2-3 soldiers. That's not like a James Bond movie where you have Born Identity. These things don't really work in real life. You go with a lot of firepower. Now, I've trained with the Yamam, I've seen the Yamam, I've worked with the Yamam in my past. If I can tell you right now of one of the deadliest units on this planet, that would be the Yamam. I'm talking top level of deadly. Now, you have a lot of units that are really good, reconnaissance unit, Navy SEALs, and etc. They're extremely deadly, but the Yamam kind of mastered their skill of being deadly in very certain particular fields, and one of them is killing. These guys are extremely strong. These guys are extremely accurate. These guys are extremely deadly. They unpack so much accurate firepower. And just in general, every one of them is an extreme elite warrior. People who are not afraid to die. People who are gladiator and philosophers at the same time. People who are literally, you would not want to start a gunfight with the Yamam. I can tell you that right now. You would not want to start a gunfight with any special unit, but definitely not with the Yamam. So these guys are extremely deadly. And you don't send only 1 or 2. You'll send numbers of them. So right now we know that other trucks are going in and into the rescue operation, and a heavy fire starts. The entire refugee camp starts charging on them. Imagine when you watch, Black Hawk Down from above, when all the Somalians were going, or in a zombie movie and all the zombies are charging right now. That's basically how it looks like, only instead of zombies, they're saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, running around. So I call them radical Muslim zombies, Muslimbis. Radical Muslimbis are coming at you right now, chanting Allahu Akbar with machine guns, with explosive, with RPGs, going through the alleyways, and these soldiers are now driving in through, going to rescue them. They say here that they went back in the same way that they came through, northwest, Wild West, northwest. I'm not so sure. It might, but usually what you do in these kind of operations, you try not to come back from the same way that you entered. That's one of the basic things that train you in special forces or any special training academy. But that's what they said there. Again, like I said, I'm reading to you what's written here and trying to comment on it to the best of my knowledge. And then they got into the helicopter, and we have videos of that. Noel Gamani enters the helicopter, leaves Gaza, and the other guys as well, and they bring them back to Israel safe and well. An unbelievable operation that even movies cannot be as dramatic as this one, from one of the most dangerous places on the face of this earth. I would even say this operation, you remember in Black Hawk Down when they go from the helicopters and land at this house to kidnap these generals, and then you have Huey a little bit before walking in the city, kind of, all looking cool with a hat and just kind of talking. You can't do these things in Gaza. You cannot walk there with a hat. If you look like an American or a Westerner, you'll be lynched. You'll be interrogated. You'll be kidnapped. They know everyone, how they look there. One of the things that came to their advantage at this point was the fact that there were so many refugees coming, so they were already getting kind of overwhelmed by the amount of new people coming. But still, that's wow. That kind of operation, guys, is just insane. So then they brought them and they rescued them, and I think this operation will be studied for generations to come. The heroism of the Yamam, the Shabak, the IDF. Let me help you understand what it means. Shabak is basically the Israeli FBI. Yamam is the SWAT, but Yamam is police, is not IDF. Many of the Yamam operators and officers were in the special forces in the IDF, like Navy SEALs, Seyrat Matkal, Duvdevan, and etc., Lotav, and then they moved into the Yamam. Even not from the special forces. I knew through my lifetime in the army, some of the most talented, skilled, deadliest soldiers that I knew were not special forces. Were literally regular soldiers, like you'd consider Marines or Army. And they were just, wow. These guys had killer instincts. These guys had fast instincts and reflexes. These guys were just something in them. They were warriors. So the best soldiers will go and apply to the Yamam, and after a very, very notorious selection period and training. Only the ones that will be found fitted the most will be picked after many numerous criteria. We can talk about this in another video, and I can explain a little bit more about the Israeli Special Forces and IDF structure, and etc. etc. So, and then you had the IDF. IDF will be the tank brigades, will be the Navy SEALs, will be the Golani, the Kfir, and other brigades that are there, will be Air Force. IDF is Israel Defense Force, and it combines inside it the Air Force, the tank corps, the mobilized corps, the infantry, the engineering. That's the IDF. And then you have the police, and then you have the Shabak, and then you have the Mossad, and then you have other special organizations that are specializing in different operations. So right now we know this is what happens. So let's go next. Oh, this is disturbing. A photographer of Al Jazeera and his doctor father were the people holding Noah Argamani as hostage. Just imagine that. And they said that the special forces entered the house with a ladder and eliminated them. Of course, that in Al Jazeera and other, they say executed them, killed them, blah, blah. When you kidnap people from another country after you murder their friends, what do you expect is going to happen? They're going to come to your house and give you a fruit basket? You're going to have the good guys coming with their most deadliest people to take you down and rescue. That's what happened when they killed Osama bin Laden. That's what happened usually when you do hostage rescue. If you're holding a hostage in your house, be ready to die. So they went inside the house of the doctor and his son and eliminated 3 of the occupants. Now let's stop about this for a second and unpack that again. A photographer who is actively, here we have a picture of him here, Abdullah El-Jamal, is a Gaza-based reporter and a photojournalist. He often reposts the ongoing March of Return protest at the fence of Gaza. We're talking about an active journalist. Welcome AP, New York Times, CNN, who keep hiring these people as the reporters. We have in Gaza not only Hamas. When we say that there's almost no innocent people in Gaza, that's what they're talking about. Last polls showed there was about 75 to 80% supported October 7. Not only supported, we're talking physically supported. Noah Argaman was not kidnapped by Hamas operators. Noah Argaman was kidnapped by regular civilians, from teenagers to old people from Gaza. People like that, journalists, doctors, and etc. That's how dangerous is the radical Islam, the Islamic Brotherhood. That's why most non-radical Muslim countries, like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, etc., don't want nothing to do with the Gazans, because they know that Muslim Brotherhood, Iran, Al-Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah, these guys are extremely radicalized, being brainwashed that even what you would consider in your country as someone who would not do such a thing, he's a journalist. I would never believe that he would kidnap someone. He's a doctor. In the radical Muslim world, absolutely they will do that. Here you go. It was right in front of our eyes. A photographer, journalist, March of Return, someone who is like a humanitarian activist, you might call, and a doctor holding in their house a kidnapped Israeli woman for 8 months. Unbelievable. And here's something from Rami Abdul from his Twitter X account. An initial testimony documenting the killing committed by the Israeli army in the Nusriyat camp today reported that Irumad HR reported that the Israeli army used a ladder to enter the home of Dr. Ahmed El-Jamal. The army immediately executed 36 years old Fatima El-Jamal. All right, they even had a woman that was in on this. The army immediately executed Fatima El-Jamal upon encountering her on the staircase. The forces then stormed the house and executed her husband, a journalist, Abdullah El-Jamal, 36 years old, and his father, Dr. Ahmed, 74 years old, in front of his grandchildren. The army also shot their daughter, Zainab, 27 years old, who sustained serious injuries. It breaks my heart. Any innocent who might be killed in such operations. But also, on the other hand, if you're over the age of, I would say, 20, let's go 20. You can be, some of these countries, they take kids from the age of 13, 14, makes them child soldiers, but you're over the age of 20. You're a complete adult right now. And you're staying in a house that is harboring a kidnapped hostage. Then it's game on. It's on you. Their blood, your blood is on you. If you don't want to get killed, surrender. Give them away. Cooperate with authorities. Don't go kidnapping people and holding them in your house and then complain when someone comes and kills you. That's all I have to say about that. And here's a picture of the house. All right. Abdullah Al-Jamal was a photographer for Al Jazeera, another terrorist organization. Don't let anyone lie to you. Al Jazeera is a terrorist organization. Al Jazeera is directly supporting terrorism. That's why Al Jazeera is banned from many Muslim countries. Not only, well, actually, it's more banned in Muslim countries than Western countries, surprisingly, because the Muslims know that these guys are supporting terrorism. These guys are inciting Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islam ideology. So he was an active journalist that on a daily basis from the beginning of the war was publishing articles in English in the Palestine Chronicle. A day before the operation, he wrote about the elimination of the mayor of Nusayrat and said that Sahal, the IDF, he said that he was a terrorist with a rich background in Hamas. And then he called him the best mayor ever. Hashtag best mayor ever, hashtag terrorist affiliated with Hamas, and etc. So that just shows you that, and it saddens me to say, someone who wants to believe that there's innocent people in Gaza, and I do believe there's innocent people in Gaza, but as every day goes by, I start believing less and less about the amount of innocent people in Gaza that are left. Either because they were brainwashed completely to stop being innocent, be cooperative with this Nazi-like ideology, or they're being executed by Hamas, by the Gazans, for having different opinions, which is something that is regularly happening in Gaza, where they execute people that don't share their beliefs, Fatah people, or anyone that resists Hamas, or they're just hiding so badly, terrified of what's happening. Here's a picture, a map of this area. Why would you hide hostages in such a heavily populated civilian area? And don't tell me because everybody ran there now. They were hiding the hostages in all these areas from before. Now, another interesting question that they're not talking about it here, but it comes to mind, and I'm just sharing my own personal opinion about this. Why was Noah and these three guys not kept in an underground tunnel? Why were they kept in a house? And one of the reasons that I can think about is inside of Gaza, you have Hamulot. You have these tribes, these families. And like I said, Hamas is not the only bad guys. There's other many bad guys that are not Hamas. And some of them are crime families, you might call them. It could be that they kidnapped these citizens. And for them, kidnapping or killing an Israeli citizens is like the highest prize they can reach. They believe that they're going to go to a special place in heaven if they do that. And they're basing that on radical Quran teaching, which is not that rare as you would like to believe. And for them, it's a big pride for their family to hold the hostages. So they might have been the one to kidnap these hostages and said to Hamas, no, we're keeping them. You know, that's our trophy, our prize. And then convince it in some kind of political way. It's like, sharing your investments. Because for them, holding hostages is like what you would see as investing in the stock market. It saddens me to say, but it's smart to share it, to divide your investments. So if one fall down, you don't lose it all. So for them, it's smart to divide your hostages. So if one is get rescued, don't get everybody rescued. Or if one is coming and then you press the button, Allahu Akbar, to blow them out, you don't blow all of them out. So it's like some kind of a investment. They look at it by spreading them. So that could be one reason that they decided to split them and keep them in different locations. However, we do know that there were recordings coming, so either Hamas did the recording or maybe these families decided to go to the next level and be as efficient as terrorists. As efficient in being terrorists like Hamas and do recording, because we did have recordings coming from Noah. And apparently one of the hostages shared also when he saw his families if they heard his recording because they recorded him, but it was never really published. I believe they're recording all the hostages all the time and we just, waiting for the right moment to release it, etc., etc. Here's another interesting piece of information. In addition to being forbidden from speaking Hebrew and forced to speak Arabic, Noa al-Gamani told her family that her captors did not allow her to shower. She was only permitted outside for fresh air once every few days, When she was allowed out, her captors dressed her in a niqab, in the whole kind of ninja-like looking religious outfit that they give the women there to hide her identity. And it's very easy because there's many women there that are not allowed to expose any piece of flesh unless their husband want to see them naked, and that's how it is. It's sad, it's wrong, and don't let anyone glorify it. I'm sorry to say that. Actually, I'm not sorry to say that. It is what it is, and I know what I'm talking about. Her captor dressed her in a niqab from head to toe to prevent her from being recognized. I actually read another report that they did allow her to shower, but very, very rarely, like, every month or something. It's just, let's not get into that right now. Like I said in the beginning, this operation was first called Seeds of Summer, and then Zir'ei Kites in Hebrew, and then was changed to Mivtza Arnon after the death of Arnon, the heroic SWAT officer who paid the ultimate sacrifice with his life to rescue these hostages and to defend his teammates. Arnon Zamora. They were rescued out of the hands of the Hamas after being captured for 246 days. Imagine that for a second. 246 days being held by a bunch of radical religious savages. Imagine even more. Try to imagine getting rescued. That moment that the IDF knocks on your door and tells you, IDF, we came to bring you back home. That moment, that voice, that sweet voice when you hear your own people coming to bring you back. How surreal that must have been. And then reaching the hospital, reaching and seeing your family, and then laying down in your bed after the whole flashes of the cameras and everything around is kind of fading away a little bit, and you lay down in your bed at home, looking at the ceiling, and you're all by yourself. Wow, what an experience, what a moment. I can't even imagine. Wow, yeah, that's just, try to imagine that. I think that's a very rare moment that most of us gladly never get to experience. So that's about this heroic military operation that will be taught in warfare academies, military officer academies in the world for generations to come. I can't express, as someone that came from that world, I can't tell you how complicated and how many variables you have in such an operation that is just, if I will try to talk about this, it will take me a whole podcast just to explain to you how do you try to plan a hostage rescue operation. For it as itself is one of the most complicated operations you can have. And that's like normal military operation, hostage rescue here. This one here was like here. We're talking about one of the most difficult operations that was executed flawlessly. Sadly, with one casualty, which is way more than we needed to. But, in the whole big picture, going behind enemy lines into a den of terrorists and coming back with only one casualty is as sad as it may be. And it breaks my heart. But it's a huge victory for the good guys. A huge victory. And any SWAT officer that goes to these missions knows that he's willing to sacrifice his life, and he knows that he might not come back. It's different than Hamas suicide bombers. They're going to die because they believe by dying and killing innocent people they will go to heaven. With the good guys, they say, I don't want to die. He left a wife and 2 children, from what I understood. I don't want to die. I want to go back to my family, but I'm willing to risk my own life so I can go and save others. That is the ultimate sacrifice that this guy made, and I can't express what a hero he is. And I'm so proud to be part of a country and a nation that these are our heroes, that our children can look up to these men, strong men and women that will risk their life to go and rescue others, even at the expense of losing their own life. This is the most ultimate sacrifice, and that's something that you don't need to be special forces to understand it. The moment that you become a parent, the moment you become a father or a mother, but as a father, something changed in you. That's the first time in your life that you have someone that you just automatically, biologically, unless you're some kind of a weirdo or lunatic, you're willing to give your life for his life. Now, as someone who goes to these special forces and other units, you learn to adapt that quality, and that's great. That's a great thing to have. It makes you more a man than you can ever be. But it comes naturally when you become a father. So that's something that is just, beautiful in my eyes, and I'm so glad and honored to have people like him be called heroes in the country that I live in. These are our heroes, not Sinwar and his goons, his rapists, and I don't know what. Further now, let's talk about this joke. This clown. Further now, let's get some comical relief, and let's talk about this clown that seems to appear everywhere we go in Gaza. Everywhere the camera is in, he's there. You can't trust a word that he's saying. Yes, I know that there's definitely war casualties there that were not direct combatants, that were casualties of war, and that's a tragic side of war. But this guy, you know how many times there's videos showing that he's faking blood scenes, he's faking massacre scenes, he's paying actors or I don't know what, giving them falafel so they can sit on the ground, pretend to be dead, holding dolls in the air, making it look like dead bodies, and even holding dead bodies of children, parading them in the air so they can show you, because they don't care about dead children. I can tell you that. I've been there, I've seen their moral standard is very, very low regarding life, but they know that you care in the West and they use it against you. So this guy now is playing the victim and saying, oh, they came to attack us, it's a genocide. How delusional and stupid can you be? Sorry, how conning and, a master of victimhood can you be to actually come and say that they're committing a genocide against you? Why? Because they came to rescue the hostages that you kidnapped, and when you came and tried to kill them and kill the hostages, then they fought back and killed you, and now you're saying they're committing a genocide. How delusional can you be? And what bothers me more is not what he says, because I know how they think. What drives me sometimes, what baffles me is how is the West falling for that? So let's repeat that again. You go to someone's house, you kidnap their children, and then that family comes to take back their children, and you try to kill the family, and then the family fights you and kills you, or kill your family members because they were trying to kill you from rescuing your own family that was kidnapped by them. And then you go and you call the police and say, oh, they came to kill us, they're committing a genocide, they're murdering my family. No, they're not. They're rescuing their own family. And if you would have not kidnapped them, no one would be dead. Or if you would have said, oh, sorry guys, you know what, I did a terrible mistake. Here, take your children. We don't want any violence here. I had some political agenda, religious agenda, but that's not the way. Violence is not the way. Then no one would be dead. But you try to kill the people who are coming to rescue. And surprise, surprise. So, anyway, I gotta go pick up my kid from the kindergarten. That's all for today's episode. I hope you guys found it educational. If you like my channel and my content, please click the subscribe button and click the like, leave a comment. It means more than you know to people like me. Spend the enormous amount of time and effort to study these cases and bring them to you in the most educational and understandable way so you can understand what's happening, things that are probably far away from you and not always easier for you to understand or relate. So yeah, I'll appreciate that very much, and stay tuned for the next episode. I also have some exciting news coming, which I'm working on them right now, a startup that I'm working on, and a business plan that I'm building right now for something that is very close to heart, and I'll be happy to share it when it starts coming up. In general, if you have any questions, any comments, or if you think that I said something wrong, I'm a human, I can err like anyone. Feel free to leave it in the comment in a respectful manner, and I'll be more than happy to try to answer that. And until then, see you next time.